You've probably heard about cholesterol your entire life. Good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, triglycerides. But here's what confuses most people. They assume that eating fatty foods is the only thing that raises cholesterol levels. They think if they just cut out butter and eggs, they're safe. But the truth is far more complicated than that. Some of the biggest threats to your cholesterol levels aren't what you'd expect, and they're hiding in foods you probably eat every single day.
My name is David. I'm a general practitioner working at Mayo Clinic in the United States, and I spend most of my time helping patients understand what's really happening inside their bodies, particularly when it comes to heart health and metabolic conditions. Many years working in Mayo Clinic, I've seen countless patients shocked to discover that their high cholesterol wasn't caused by the foods they thought were the problem. Instead, it was the seemingly innocent foods they never suspected, the ones marketed as healthy, convenient, or just part of everyday American life.
In this video, I want to walk you through 5 specific types of foods that are quietly raising your bad cholesterol, increasing your triglycerides, and lowering your good cholesterol, often all at the same time. More importantly, I want to explain why these foods have this effect, what's actually happening in your body when you eat them, and what you can do about it. Because once you understand the mechanism, the choices become clearer. Let's start with the most surprising one. When we talk about high cholesterol, most people immediately think about dietary fat, and that makes sense, right? Fat in the diet equals fat in the blood. But here's what most people don't realize. Eating too many refined starches and carbohydrates can raise your triglyceride levels just as effectively as eating saturated fat, sometimes even more so. Here's the mechanism. When you eat food, your body breaks it down into usable energy. Carbohydrates get converted into glucose, which your cells use for fuel. But here's the catch. If you consume more calories than your body actually needs, especially from high-glycemic carbohydrates, your body doesn't just waste that excess energy. Instead, it converts it into fat and stores it. And where does a lot of that fat end up? In your bloodstream, as triglycerides. Triglycerides are a type of fat found in your blood, and they're a key component of what we call lipid panels, the cholesterol tests your doctor orders. High triglyceride levels are strongly associated with increased risk of heart disease and stroke, especially when combined with low HDL, the good cholesterol. And one of the fastest ways to raise your triglycerides is to consume too many refined, high-glycemic carbohydrates. What does high-glycemic mean? It refers to how quickly a food raises your blood sugar. Foods with a high glycemic index cause rapid spikes in blood glucose, which then trigger large insulin responses. Over time, this cycle promotes fat storage and increases triglyceride production in the liver. In the American diet, the biggest culprits are foods like white rice, white bread, pastries, sugary cereals, and even certain forms of pasta. These are staples in many households, quick, convenient, filling, but they're also metabolically problematic when consumed in large quantities or as the foundation of every meal.
So what should you do instead? Focus on lower glycemic alternatives. Instead of white rice, choose brown rice or quinoa. Instead of regular pasta, try whole grain pasta, or even alternatives like lentil pasta. Sweet potatoes are significantly lower on the glycemic index than white potatoes. These foods still provide energy, but they're absorbed more slowly, which means less insulin spiking, less fat storage, and ultimately better control over your triglyceride levels.
The key isn't to eliminate carbohydrates entirely. That's not realistic or necessary for most people. The key is to choose the right kinds and to be mindful of portion sizes. If refined starches are a problem, refined sugar is an even bigger one. And this is where the American diet becomes particularly challenging, because added sugars are everywhere, often in places you wouldn't expect. When you consume refined sugar, especially in liquid form, it gets absorbed into your bloodstream very quickly. Your liver responds by converting much of that sugar into fat, specifically triglycerides. This process is called de novo lipogenesis, literally new fat creation. And the more sugar you consume, especially fructose, the more your liver ramps up this fat production. Sugary drinks are the worst offenders. A single 12-ounce can of soda contains about 39 grams of sugar, roughly 10 teaspoons. That's a massive glucose and fructose load delivered all at once, with no fiber to slow absorption. The same problem exists with sweetened iced teas, energy drinks, many fruit juices, even the ones marketed as natural, and specialty coffee drinks loaded with flavored syrups. But it's not just drinks. Many processed foods contain hidden sugars: flavored yogurts, breakfast cereals, granola bars, pasta sauces, salad dressings, and even bread. The average American consumes about 77 grams of added sugar per day, more than triple the American Heart Association's recommendation of 25 grams for women and 36 grams for men. And here's the critical point. Unlike dietary fat, which can signal satiety and slow digestion, sugar doesn't make you feel full. You can consume hundreds of calories from sugar and still feel hungry an hour later. This leads to overeating, weight gain, and a cascade of metabolic problems, including elevated triglycerides and worsening cholesterol profiles. The solution is to dramatically reduce added sugars. Read labels carefully. Choose unsweetened beverages: water, black coffee, unsweetened tea. If you want fruit juice, have a small portion, and ideally with a meal that contains protein and fiber. Better yet, eat whole fruit instead, which provides fiber along with the natural sugars. Now, let's talk about dietary fat. Because, yes, certain types of fat do directly raise your bad cholesterol, specifically LDL cholesterol. And one of the main sources in the American diet is red meat and processed meat products. Red meat, beef, pork, lamb, contains saturated fat, which has been shown in numerous studies to raise LDL cholesterol levels. LDL stands for low-density lipoprotein, and it's often called bad cholesterol because high levels are associated with plaque buildup in your arteries, increasing your risk of heart attack and stroke. Processed meats are even more concerning. We're talking about bacon, sausage, hot dogs, deli meats, and cured meats like salami. These products not only contain saturated fat, but also high levels of sodium and preservatives like nitrates, which have been linked to increased cardiovascular risk and even certain cancers. Does this mean you can never eat red meat? Not necessarily, but it does mean you should be strategic about it. The American Heart Association recommends limiting red meat and choosing leaner cuts when you do eat it. More importantly, they recommend shifting the balance of your diet toward other protein sources: poultry, fish, especially fatty fish rich in omega-3s like salmon and mackerel, legumes, and plant-based proteins. Fish, particularly fatty fish, is especially beneficial because it contains omega-3 fatty acids, which actually help lower triglycerides and may raise HDL, good cholesterol. The contrast couldn't be clearer. Red meat raises LDL and can increase triglycerides, while fatty fish does the opposite. The practical takeaway: aim to make fish or plant-based proteins the center of your meals most days of the week, and reserve red meat for occasional consumption, rather than daily habit. If there's one type of fat you should eliminate completely, it's trans fats. Trans fats are the only dietary component that both raises LDL, bad cholesterol, and lowers HDL, good cholesterol, at the same time. It's the worst possible combination for your cardiovascular health.
Trans fats are created through a process called hydrogenation, where liquid vegetable oils are chemically altered to become solid at room temperature. This was originally done to extend shelf life and improve the texture of processed foods. The result is what you might see labeled as partially hydrogenated oil, or what's commonly known as margarine or vegetable shortening.
For decades, trans fats were everywhere in the American food supply. Baked goods, fried foods, margarine, microwave popcorn, frozen pizzas, coffee creamers, and countless packaged snacks. Thankfully, the FDA banned artificial trans fats in 2018, but they're not entirely gone. Small amounts can still be present in some processed foods, and foods containing less than 0.5 grams per serving can be labeled as having 0 grams of trans fat. The health impact of trans fats is severe. Studies have shown they significantly increase the risk of heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. Even small amounts, just 2% of daily calories from trans fats, can increase heart disease risk by 23%.
So, how do you avoid them? First, read ingredient labels carefully. If you see partially hydrogenated oil anywhere on the label, avoid that product. Second, limit your consumption of fried foods from restaurants and fast food chains, as some still use oils containing trans fats. Third, avoid stick margarine and vegetable shortening. If you need a spread, use real butter in moderation, or better yet, use olive oil. The bottom line, there is no safe level of trans fat consumption. Your goal should be 0.
Finally, let's talk about alcohol, something many people don't associate with cholesterol problems at all. After all, beer and wine don't contain fat or cholesterol, so how could they affect your lipid levels? The answer lies in how your liver processes alcohol. When you drink, your liver prioritizes metabolizing the alcohol because it's essentially a toxin. While your liver is busy doing this, it's also converting the carbohydrates in alcoholic beverages into triglycerides. Beer, wine, and especially mixed drinks with sugary mixers contain significant amounts of carbohydrates, and heavy or regular drinking can substantially raise your triglyceride levels.
This is particularly problematic because many Americans drink regularly, whether it's a few beers after work, wine with dinner most nights, or weekend social drinking. And over time, this pattern can contribute to elevated triglycerides, fatty liver disease, weight gain, and worsening overall metabolic health. Current guidelines from health authorities suggest that if you choose to drink, you should do so in moderation, up to 1 drink per day for women and up to 2 drinks per day for men. 1 drink is defined as 12 ounces of beer, 5 ounces of wine, or 1.5 ounces of distilled spirits. And importantly, moderate drinking doesn't mean you should start drinking if you don't already. The potential benefits don't outweigh the risks for non-drinkers.
If you have elevated triglycerides or other metabolic concerns, your doctor may recommend cutting back further or eliminating alcohol entirely, at least temporarily, to see if your levels improve. So here's what we've covered. Refined starches and high-glycemic carbohydrates raise triglycerides. Refined sugars, especially in liquid form, do the same, often more dramatically. Red and processed meats raise LDL cholesterol. Trans fats raise LDL while lowering HDL. And alcohol, through its carbohydrate content and effects on liver metabolism, raises triglycerides as well. What matters most isn't perfection, it's awareness and consistent, thoughtful choices. You don't have to eliminate every single one of these foods forever, but you do need to understand what they're doing inside your body and make conscious decisions about how often and how much you consume them. Identify which of these 5 categories is most prominent in your current diet. Maybe you drink soda every day. Maybe you eat red meat at every dinner. Maybe you rely heavily on white bread and pasta. Pick one area to focus on first. Make a sustainable change, and then build from there. And remember, managing cholesterol isn't just about avoiding the bad. It's also about embracing the good. In future discussions, we'll talk about the foods that actively improve your cholesterol profile. But for now, focus on reducing these 5. If you have concerns about your cholesterol levels, or if you haven't had them checked recently, talk to your primary care physician. A simple blood test can give you a clear picture of where you stand and help you set realistic goals. This information is meant to educate and empower you, but it's not a substitute for personalized medical advice. Your heart health is worth the effort. Small changes, repeated consistently over time, make a real difference.